Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Really great question posed today in the chat. Very controversial. Got lots of answers for Lord of the Rings, which Sky and I are very disappointed with because we're both avid Harry Potter fans. So maybe you just need to watch Harry Potter a little bit more to fall a little bit more in love with it. And I would definitely advise reading the books over watching the films because, they're so good. Anyway, with that being said, our webinar today is not about Harry Potter nor Lord of the Rings. So if you have tuned in for that, probably you're in the wrong place. But today we are going to be looking at Google Drive and specifically how we can share teaching resources, how we can collaborate, how we can work together, particularly in this time when people are relying on tools to enable them to continue working from home. So I have a great lineup of speakers today. Obviously don't include myself in that, but I'm Kiri. I am the National Accounts Manager in the Google for Education team. If you've been tuning into the webinars over the past few weeks, you will be well au fait with my voice because I've been hosting most of them and a few of my colleagues have joined me along the way. We also have Kev and Mia, who are Google certified trainers here from EdTech team and also currently still teaching. So we'll be able to answer any specific questions on Google Drive, but anything else you want to throw in there, why not? And we also have Emma Ferris from Tring School, who's going to talk to us about how Tring are using G Suite for Education and more specifically their top tips for using Google Drive. So the agenda is fairly pretty much how I just said with the speakers, but it's my job really just to talk to you about what resources are available as a follow-up to the webinar today. So for those of you who aren't quite sure about what G Suite is or what tools are available or why people are using G Suite, we actually have a ton of tools that are available for you to use as part of G Suite for Education, and these are all free and they're all covered under certain terms and conditions, which makes them different to what you would use on, say, a Gmail account, for example. So you'll see some of the icons here, some of you might be familiar with, and actually in hindsight, I maybe should have done a quick quiz and got you all to tell me what the icons were. But you have things like Google Docs and Google Sheets, Google Forms, Classroom, Google Meet. And if you are interested to learn about how to use some of these tools outside of Google Drive, we have a lot of other webinars that were pre-recorded and put onto the website where you signed up for the webinars. So you can go in there and check them out. And we have a mixture of getting hands-on with the tools, examples of how you can use them, and also school stories. So definitely one to go back and watch. But in terms of G Suite for Education, the reason that people are using them and they're so widely used across the world is because they're so intuitive and easy to use. And that's generally some of the key feedback we get from teachers. They're scalable. So for those of you that maybe already had a G Suite domain or you're using a kind of centralized domain in a multi-academy trust, for example, you'll realize that they're really easy for everyone just to kind of sign in and get on with, right? They're there, they work, that they're easy to use. They're built for collaboration, and we're going to dive a little bit more into collaboration today. And G Suite for Education is secure by design and GDPR compliant. We've done quite a few webinars now on how to get started with G Suite for Education. So if right now you're using, say, a consumer account to access Google Classroom and you think that your organization is valid for a G Suite for Education domain, you can check back our webinars to see how to get up and running with it. We also have I can hear my dog starting to get naughty. So if you hear some random noises, it's the dog jumping around. Joys of working from home, right? So we do have launched something called Teach from Home, which is a temporary hub, kind of for teachers basically to go on and find real quick snippets of information on how to get started on using G Suite. So there's tutorials for kind of things you might want to use for the online classroom. And these are broken down into all the different things we just talked about. So for example, Google Meet and Classroom. We also have lots of other resources. So if you are if you've been using Google for a long time in education, you'll know that in terms of features, we've actually done quite a big feature release over the past few weeks, and in a response to school closures and some of the requests we were getting in, particularly around Google Meet. So there is actually a blog article that you can find, g.co/edu/COVID-19, and you can find the latest updates and feature resources there. And in addition to that, we've got new distance learning content. So this is specifically in the Teacher Centre, where you might go and find your training right now. We've introduced a new course specifically on how you can use the tools for distance learning, so specifically for the kind of environment that we're in right now. And then also you have access to the UK webinar series, which you probably signed up for if you're here today. And just to kind of jump back to the Teacher Centre, this week we've actually launched a new place which hosts all of our information. So those of you that are maybe certified trainers, or you've done your educator certificates, you'll know that you used to have to go to the Teacher Centre, and it was all kind of in a sort of separate location to our website. And we've actually just merged all of this together now, and we've introduced new product guides of how you can use every single one of these tools specifically. So in addition to the webinars that we've done that have been kind of product specific, so for example, we've done one on Jamboard, we've done one on Google Sites, etc., etc. You can now go and find this kind of follow-up training on our Teacher Centre. So definitely want to go and check out if you haven't already, and you can find that by going to g.co/Teacher Centre, and just mind the US spelling because it's Centre ER, not RE. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Kev, who I think is waiting in the wings to jump in, who's going to start to talk us through how we might use Google Drive. Over to you, Kev.
Thank you, Kiri. I've just seen what's going on in the chat there, and I'm just going to chuck in something that might annoy a few people, but Lord of the Rings, definitely all the way. So that's probably going to spoil something off there. Anyway, welcome to today. I'm just going to take you through some like an intro to Google Drive. And what is Google Drive? Well, what is it? It's an online file system in which you can access all of your files from anywhere at any time. And the beauty of it is it comes with unlimited storage space, so you don't ever have to worry about running out of space. So I just want to go through a few things of how you can set up some files and folders and how you can share and collaborate those documents. So here is our drive. Within our drive, we have our app launcher, which we can access a variety of our Google apps here. And over on the left-hand side, this is where we can set up new documents and new folders. Also, just to note, we can access new Google Docs, Sheets and Slides, and we can also access Google Forms, Google Drawings, Jamboards, and Sites if we wish. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to set this up as though it's a video project for our students. So I'm just going to come over to here and add a new folder. And with that, I'm just going to call that video project. And there is our folder. It's just sitting in our drive there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside that, and I want to set up some subfolders for my students. So again, we're going to come over to the left and add another folder. Now this one may be for planning. So I'm going to set up this folder here for planning, and I'm going to go enter that. Now I might want to add a doc, which we're going to work collaboratively on. And I can set up a new doc inside there, and it's just going to be planning your video. Simple as that. And I can come back to my drive and just give it a quick refresh.
Kev, whilst you're doing that, would you mind just zooming in on your screen a little bit? Because I think Google Drive has a knack of being fairly small. So it might be just, yeah, that's way better. Thank you.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay.
All good.
Cool. Excellent. Okay. So we're planning our video. Just to let you know that if you hover over the top left-hand corner of Untitled Document, and just click in there and it will add the title for you. And there we go. And I'm just going to give it a quick refresh. And there's our document there. So within our project folder, we have planning, and that's going to be for our planning our video project there. But I also want to add a few more. Now, I don't necessarily need to go up to the top left-hand corner each time. I can right-click and add a new folder this way. Okay, so this might be to do with, let's say, budgets. And with that, I'm also going to go into budgets, and I'm going to set up a new spreadsheet for the students. And I'm just going to call that video budget. Enter. Back to my drive. Just quickly refresh that. And there's my sheet within that. I'm going to go back up to the video project folder here. Now, the good thing about this is, in terms of organizing, this is something that I use quite a lot. It's color coding. So you can right click on the folder and come down through the settings, and you have a variety of different colors you can change your folders to. And I find it's really helpful in terms of like filtering what I'm looking for, or for me, I can remember that okay, everything in budgets could be green because it's the same as sheets. Docs could be blue because of the icon being blue for docs. So it's just an easy way for me to remember that. So with budgeting, I'm just going to label it green. Planning, I'm going to label blue. Okay, and I can do it that way. What I can also do is I'm going to add one more folder here, and I'm going to just put video files. Add that there. I can easily rename that if I want to by right-clicking and coming down and pressing rename. And I can change that to footage. And also, if I want to, I can move these folders around, and I can move them pretty much wherever I want. Now, I can click and drag and drop video footage into budget or planning if I wish, or I could right-click, move to, and select the desired pathway. I'm not going to do that on this one, but that's how you can actually do it. I can easily delete it if I wish. And if I delete it, it comes over here into my bin. And they will stay in here for a while. So you can see there's some previous files in here. But if I want to retrieve it, I can by coming up to the top right-hand corner and just pressing restore from bin. Once you delete it permanently from your bin, your administrator will have 25 days to be able to restore that. After that, it's gone for good. Okay, so another thing we can do is, let's say we go into our folders, and budget is going to be something really important because it's going to do with the finances of our shoot. So I might want to make that a starred folder, and what that does is it adds it over to on my left-hand side here, which is your kind of like your favorites, and that's where I can find all of my starred folders in there. So it's a really good way of organizing all of your documents there. What I can also do is, in terms of working collaboratively on this, I might want to share this folder. I can right-click, come down to share, and I'm not going to share that. I'm going to share it with Mia. And then I can set the restrictions on this, whether I can allow Mia to organize, add, or edit, or just view it only. But I want Mia to be able to edit all of the documents and everything within that folder. So anything that you set restrictions or permissions on the top folder, it will filter all the way down for all of the files inside of that folder. If I come down to advanced, what I can do is I can change the access to it from a domain sort of point of view, so I can put it directly on the web, so anyone on the internet can find it if I wish. I can send it as a link, so anyone with a link who doesn't have a Google account can still access it. And then there are various other restrictions and permissions you can go through in order to change access. I just want to share it specifically with Mia, so I'm going to send it to her there. I can add in a little message just to say, here's the file. And I can send that to Mia, and Mia, you're going to get that now. Then we can work on it collaboratively. What we can also do is, by selecting the folder and coming over to the right-hand side, we can get a shareable link. And if I turn that on, by default, it will create a link in which people can only view the files or the folders. They can't edit that. You'll have to change the sharing settings as we just previously saw. And I can add people into it again. So there's various ways of, of doing the same sort of tasks. I can delete it. I can come over to here on our view details. And this is really nice because this gives you time stamping of the files and folders that you've created. And it gives you a pathway of exactly where you can find them. I can come over to activity, and here it will tell me to the minute of what I've done with regard to everything inside that folder. So I've restored an item, I've moved it to the bin, created an item. It takes me all the way back to the beginning. What we can also do by selecting the folder is we can change the view. So we can change it to a list view. Now, I prefer this view. I find it a lot more helpful because my drive is full of folders and files, and I just prefer the list view in terms of doing the grid view, but that's personal preference. You can set that up however you wish. Inside Drive, to improve your workflow and speed up your skills and that, you can use keyboard shortcuts, which you can find in your settings on the top right-hand corner. Come down to keyboard shortcuts. And you can scroll down through this library of shortcuts that you can use to get around in Drive, or you can use the search feature here. So I might just try and find rename, and there it is. So it's just N for November. I can simply come up and just select the folder, press N, and there we go. Planning your video. I can change it. It's easy as that. Going back to the top level of the drive in the top left-hand corner, we can use the search bar to find any of our folders, and simply by selecting on it, I can filter it for a variety of documents. I can use the advanced search, and I can choose to find anything which is a photo or a PDF or an audio file, videos, drawings. Maybe on the video project, you might be storyboarding. So it's a really good way of filtering out all your searches. I can search in the bin if I wish, or my starred folders. So all of my favorites can be viewed in there. I can also do it by my date modifiers, whether it's in the last 7 days, or I can set a custom search time for that. Also, what we can do is we can set an expiry date for when we're sharing these folders. If I right click on this folder here and press share, I can go to my advanced button at the bottom here, and where I shared it with Mia, there's a little button here which looks like a clock. If I select that, I can provide Mia with a certain amount of days access. By default, it'd be 30 days or 7, but maybe I just want Mia to have access for not 31 days, because we are in May. I want it for 5th. And I still can't do it right. And I'm going to get it for 32 days. I'm just going to set it for 32 days. So after 32 days, it's going to expire. I'm going to save that. And afterwards, Mia will no longer have access to the drive. So that's just sort of a brief overview of how you can set up files and folders in Drive, how you can share and provide different restrictions and permissions in order to collaborate with other teachers and students. Some keyboard shortcuts there to speed up your workflow, how you can delete files and how you can restore them after a certain time period. Also looked at your starred folder and how we can set up your favorite files, which can be accessed more easily and faster. And also on the left here, you've got recent. So anything that you've worked on recently, it will be housed in here and give you a timestamp, and it will also tell you who has been modified by. And anything on the left, anything we've shared by. So for instance, the file I've just shared with Mia should be viewed in there. And that's it. I think that's a brief overview of basically setting up your Google Drive. So if I can now hand over to Mia.
Thanks, Kev.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Mia. I'm a learning technologist at a further education college in Brighton. I'm a Google certified trainer and a trainer for EdTech team. And today I'm going to be showing you how to get started with using shared drives. So the difference between a shared drive and just sharing folders in your My Drive is that the whole team owns all the files and folders in the shared drive. So this means that if someone leaves, all of the files that they've contributed remain in the shared drive so that the team can continue to use them. If you find that you're sharing lots of similar files with the same people all the time, for example, if you work in a department, curriculum team, or a year group who often share planning and resources with each other, then a shared drive is a great way to manage this. So I'm just going to show you how you can get your shared drive set up. So if you make sure that you are in the shared drive section on your Google Drive, and then click the new button here. And then this little pop-up will come up where you can give your shared drive a name and then click create. So this will automatically open my shared drive for me, and you'll notice that the interface here is very much the same as in My Drive. So you can create and organize folders and files in much the same way that you would if you're in your My Drive, like Kev was just showing you. So I'm just going to create a couple of folders and files so we've got some to play around with. So I'm going to click on the new folder, create a folder for planning. And then in this planning folder, I'm just going to create a Google Doc. And so that will now appear in my planning folder. So going back to the main page, at the moment, I'm the only one in this shared drive, which you can see from the top here where it says one person. That kind of defeats the object of using a shared drive. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some more people to my drive so that I can share my planning documents with them. So if I click on add members here, and I can see that I am the manager of this shared drive. So what that means is, because I'm the one that set up the shared drive, I have full permissions to all of the documents that are created in this drive. So I can add things, delete things, move things around, and I can manage the members of this shared drive as well. Now, to add people, I'm just going to start typing the name of someone in my domain, and they'll pop up here. And then on the right-hand side here, I can choose what level of permissions I want them to have. So by default, they're given the content manager access, which allows them to add, edit, move, and delete files from the shared drive, but they can't manage the people in the shared drive, and they can't add new people and things like that. The other options are, I could give them contributor access, so that would involve them being able to add and edit files, but they wouldn't be able to move things around or delete anything. And then these final two permission levels here, you might recognize from My Drive. So the commenter can just comment on the files and the viewer can just view the files. So they've got very limited access to the files in this drive. So I want this person to get a notification to say that they've been added to the drive, and I'm just going to leave her a quick message. And send that to her now, and she will get a notification to say that she's been invited to this drive. Now, I might want to go back and change the level of permissions for the person that I've just added at a later date. And the way I can do this is by clicking Manage Members over here. And what this allows me to do is it allows me to review what permissions everyone has, who's a member of the drive, and then I can change their permission level, or I can remove them if I want to. Now, you might find that you want to share a file with someone who's not a member of your shared drive. So, for example, if you want to share an example of your planning with a member of another team, but it wouldn't make sense for them to be a full member of the drive and can see all of your planning documents, you can do this in much the same way you would in your My Drive. So if you highlight the file that you want to share, and then you've got a couple of options here. You can either share with specific people by clicking on this icon here. And then you can add someone in the same way you did before by typing in their name or email address and sending them a quick message to let them know. You can also change their levels of permission on the right here like before, but you'll notice that these are different to when you're inviting people to your shared drive. So here you get the same levels of access that you would if you were sharing a file in your My Drive. So you've got viewer, commenter, or editor. Now, in this instance, I just want this person to be able to view my planning, but I don't want them to be able to make any changes. So I'm just going to give them view access here. And then I'm going to send that and they'll get a notification. If I want to share this file with lots of people outside of my shared drive, then I can send them a shareable link. And by default, this is usually off, but I can toggle this on here to get the link. And what this will do is anyone that I share the link with will be able to view this document if I copy this link and send it to them by email, for example. Now, if I go to sharing settings down here, I can change that level of access to that link by clicking change. And then again, as when I'm sharing with individual people, I can change that to comment or edit access. Okay, so that's sharing with people in your shared drive and externally to your shared drive. Now, if you want to be able to see what's been going on in your shared drive and have a bit of an overview of where things are, what people are doing, then as within My Drive, you can click on the information icon up here and go to the activity stream. And this is really useful for when you're sharing lots of documents with people, because if they're getting shared or changed or moved around, it's useful to be able to see what the history is on that. So you would be able to see right from when this file was created, who it's been shared with, what level of access they've been given, and if they've changed the name of anything, if they've moved things between folders and things like that. So the final thing that I want to show you is a really great little feature with shared drives. So I'm just going to go back to my shared drives homepage. Now at the moment, I've only got one shared drive here, but you might find that lots of people start adding you to their shared drives, especially if you work across teams. And after a while, this page might start getting a bit cluttered. So a really great way of managing this is if you click on a shared drive that you maybe don't use as often, for example, and then go to the More Actions menu up here, you can choose to hide the shared drive. And you'll see that it disappears from my main shared drive page. But don't worry, it's not gone completely. There's a button here called Hidden Shared Drives. And this is where it lives now. And I can still access everything in there. It just gets it off that main homepage, which I can now keep for the team drive, the shared drives that I need to access regularly. And over here can just be the ones that I need to get to now and again. So I'm going to hand back over to Kiri now. That's my shared drives introduction done. Thank you for.
Thanks so much, Mia. Thank you. That was really, really useful. I think we're going to bring Kev back in and just Kev's screen. I think we noticed that Kev's screen was a little bit small previously. So what we're going to do now? Oh, amazing! Look at that. You can see it perfectly.
Is that big enough for you now? Is it? Yeah.
That's big enough. Sorry.
I think any closer, and I'll be in it.
Well, as you can tell from the glasses. Yeah, so I think just the only thing I just wanted you to show in terms of sharing was just how it looks differently on a document in your normal drive compared to shared drives. And we have had a question come in, so probably just before we do that, right now it's not possible to give folder level permissions in shared drive, but you obviously can do that in My Drive. So if it depends on kind of the use case for what you're wanting to do with the documents or how you're wanting to kind of organize your work. Shared drives really, if you think about kind of in a way replacing those the S drive or the G or the like whatever drive you call it in your organization, the L drive or the M drive or whatever. I go for S because that used to be when I was teaching what ours was, the H drive. Yeah, so basically it kind of replaces that almost. So people still can have access, but as you can see, Mia showed us really clearly that you can kind of break down those sharing permissions per drive. So you probably wouldn't create a drive where you have maybe safeguarding content in the same drive as like curriculum content, right? Because you're going to want different owners and different content managers around that. So it's just something to kind of point out there. Kev, if you can just sort of show us those sharing permissions again, I think that would be really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So for instance, I'm going to bring in Andy on this as well. So by pressing the little pencil over here, I can change the editing features. So Andy can edit, he can comment, or he can just view only. And then I can add in a little note out, and that will go to Andy there. Or if I right click on it and go to share again and go to the advanced, this gives me a breakdown of who has permission and what sort of restrictions they have. So for instance, Mia can only view them, and we put an expiry on it, and Andy has full editing access. I can set an expiry if I wish to. Also, if I wanted to, I could transfer the ownership to Andy. Maybe you would want to do this if, for instance, the file is going to be deleted, or you're moving on to new pastures and Andy's going to take over the department from me. So therefore, I might want to hand over all my resources to Andy, and so I can change the ownership. So I'm going to give him ownership on that. And then I'm just going to hit save. It's going to ask me, am I sure I want to do that? Absolutely. There you go, Andy. You have ownership of the director research document.
Awesome. Okay,
is that okay?
Yeah. The other thing that I just wanted to just highlight, if you can just head back to the sharing settings as well, you'll see at the bottom, this is really useful for particularly, I think, at this time when you're not necessarily, it feels like you haven't got as much control, right, over what stuff have access to. But you'll notice at the bottom, which I don't think you now have access to because you're not the owner, is that it can actually disable. It can disable. You've got access to that one. The ability to. I'll wait for you to go there. Yeah, so you can prevent anyone from changing access or adding new people. So if you wanted to share a document but you didn't want it to go to anyone else and you wanted to keep control of that, you can prevent editors from doing it. And you can also disable editors from being able to download, print, or copy the content itself. So more if you wanted to sort of share almost like a PDF-esque but more secure version of that, you could do that from the sharing settings as well. So it can get it can seem quite complex, right, Kev? I know probably when you first started doing this with me, I was like, there's too much, but you start to find the use cases of why you might use certain sharing settings for certain reasons.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And say having those different levels of restriction, I think, really do help, especially with collaboration, because you might not want everyone having editing access, because then everyone can delete or remove certain parts of the document, and really maybe all you want is them just to be able to view it. So it's great to have all these different levels of access to it.
I'm also going to just share like a couple of quick tips that I picked up really quickly and early on with Google Drive that just made my life a whole lot easier. If you just come off that for me, Kev, I'm going to just have to direct you because I realize I'm just
sure.
So when I was teaching, I was so rigid in my folder structure, and I even color coded folders. So let's just show that, Kev, because I think that's a really cool thing. If you're like me and very anal retentive about
colourful.
Of your folders, so you can, it's like a really nice way you can see them, and they're all organized that way. But the other thing is, particularly now working at Google, a lot more information is shared with me on a day-to-day basis, and actually the search in Drive is a much easier tool for me to find things really quickly and easily. So in the search features, even if you don't remember the document name, but you remember the person that shared it with you, for example, or you know what type of document it was, or you can just kind of say one word that you think it might be. You can see here that there's kind of these additional search features. So especially when you're first starting out and you're kind of getting used to the shared with me area compared to my drive and compared to shared drives, the search feature is absolutely one of the most useful tools that you can use. Another quick tip from me, and I probably will wrap up after that, is in the little settings cog in the top right hand corner of your Google Drive, you've got settings. Yeah, head into there for me. Thanks, Kev. And so if you're using, I'm working off a Chromebook today, so this doesn't necessarily matter for me. But if you're using, this is your first time using Google Drive, or you're new to it and you want to reuse old documents, so things like Word documents or PowerPoints, you can actually tick that box to say convert uploads, and anything that you drag into Google Drive, you can literally just kind of do a drag and drop. It will convert into the appropriate tool. So a Microsoft Word document will turn into a Google Doc, for example. And obviously that's where you then get your additional collaboration benefits because you're using those tools. And one other thing in settings is you can also change, you can also click the offline button, and that will mean if you, when we get back to the time of working on trains or working on our commute somewhere, or maybe your internet goes down at home, you can actually continue to work on documents even if you're offline. So even though we're a cloud-based tool, you'd think you need internet access all of the time. You actually don't. You can still continue working with that offline feature. So just a couple of things that I just wanted to point out, because they were just useful things that I generally hear from other people, but also for me when I first started out, and things that I got shown quite early on, which is hopefully helpful to you too. So with that, I'm going to bring Mia back in, and we're just going to have a look. We've probably got some questions in the Q&A coming in, and so if you have any questions, please pop them in. Really great question from Helen. What is the most efficient way to transfer documents between my drive and shared drive? I'm not going to answer because I've just spoken too much long.
Yeah, I can, if I can just share my screen again, I can quickly show you. You can drag documents that are in your My Drive straight into a team drive or a folder in your team drive, your shared drive, sorry. Just like that. That would be the most efficient way of doing it.
And the one thing to note is that will automatically change the sharing permissions of that document. So just be mindful that if it is a document that you don't want people to have access to, just double check the sharing permissions on that shared drive before you do so. Got a great statement from Stephen about change of mindset. Yeah, you're right. Cloud working is completely different to what we're used to, and actually it does take a little bit of kind of getting your, like the collaboration piece. And actually another thing that someone once said to me was, don't think of anything in Google Docs as files. They're actually links. They're all basically web links, right? And that's where you can get your collaboration really easily from, and changing permissions, because unlike in a traditional sense where you have files that essentially you can attach to an email, send it off, and like whoever got that email has got that information, when you're working in Google Drive, you can change those permissions instantly. So that kind of, that safety net of being able to keep your own data is really great. And actually it is a different way of working, but I think, the more you kind of start to use it, the more you get used to it. And I'm sure that Emma will share with us shortly how they're doing that at Tring School. Another one, a question here. So why is it that when you upload photos, it's changing the file format from JPEG to HEIC? Can you upload as JPEGs? Yes, I thought you could.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can.
Yeah. I'm not sure why it's doing that, Sophia. Maybe it's something to take offline, but probably without seeing it, it's a bit hard for us to troubleshoot this way. But you can upload JPEGs. Also, someone did ask if we could share some past webinars. We did that in the chat, but if you head over to bit.ly/GFE UK webinars, you can find all of our previous webinars on there. So it looks like I think we've probably covered all of those questions, which is great. So thank you both. We'll bring you back on at the end just in case there are any more questions coming in. But with that, I'm going to pass over to Emma, who's going to come and talk to us about how Tring School are using G Suite and also Google Drive for distance learning. So over to you, Emma.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Emma Ferris and I'm the Google leader at Tring School, and I also teach modern languages. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit, as Kiri said, about how we're using G Suite in general, but also specifically during this slightly weird time of remote learning. So we're a fairly large school with about 1,500 students on roll, and we're situated about 40 miles outside of London, pretty much on the Herts-Bucks border. We're part of the Ridgeway Learning Partnership, and we have been a Google for Education reference school for several years now. As part of this, we've attracted visitors from over 100 schools, including from places such as China, Japan, Scandinavia, and obviously from the UK as well. So when we started looking at going down the EdTech route, it was really important to us that any technology we chose had to underpin teaching and learning. Because obviously that's kind of the main thing that we're there for at schools. And you can see here on the screen a key quote from our IT strategy. We wanted, and we still want, to empower our students and prepare them for the 21st century world they're going to live in. And so to help with this, we've rolled out one-to-one Chromebooks for 1,200 students. So those are our students from year 7 to year 11. And we've introduced a bring your own device policy for our sixth form. We've also fully integrated G Suite into all aspects of the school life. So how does that all link to what we're doing now? We're quite fortunate that because of our voluntary one-to-one scheme, students generally have their own device. So we've been able to carry on with minimal disruption. So we're sticking to a fairly normal timetable, and teachers are able to post lessons on Google Classroom. We're supporting this with videos either created through Screencastify, which is a Google Chrome extension, or through some live teaching or recorded videos through Meet. And all of this is supported and underpinned by training resources on our staff intranet, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So here you can see on the left-hand side, this is a screenshot from our staff intranet, and you can see here we set up a teaching from home section, and so we've got sections for staff to look at on all our key tools. We've got Google Classroom on there, Screencastify, Google Hangouts, which obviously is now name changed to Meet, some other tools to use if staff are feeling a little bit more advanced, want to try something out. Plus, as you can see just at the bottom there, we've set up a support page for Level 1 and Level 2 Google Certified Educator Awards, because we're hoping that some of our staff would like to take this opportunity to develop their skills as part of their CPD. On the right-hand side, you can see an example of our weekly Teaching from Home document. So to support staff further with their training, we're sending out every week this document called Teaching from Home. And this is filled with helpful tips, updates, advice from staff and colleagues, kind of common questions from staff, students and parents. And our IT team have been absolutely brilliant and working on this in the background to help answer questions and troubleshoot for everybody pretty much. So the main ways then that we're using Google Drive at the moment are in two ways really. And the first one, as you've seen a lot of today, is about sharing resources and being able to work collaboratively. So most of our departments have set up a remote learning or teaching from home folder, and you can see a couple of examples here on the screen. This is really useful because it means that all of our teachers can have access to the same resources. We can all work collaboratively on them. And it's really nice when, as a teacher, you're going to try and plan something that you can go, oh, actually, my colleague's already done that. I can take things and adapt it if I want to. Our computer science department have gone down a slightly different route. They're still collaborating, but they've set up a Google Sheet, which is saved in their Google Drive folder. And you can see here that this is I've got hyperlinks on for pretty much every lesson, I think, up until the end of June. And this is set up really nicely so that anybody can kind of come in, click on these links, and it will show you exactly what you need to post for the students on Google Classroom, and exactly have all your resources in one place. Down here at the bottom, you can see an example. This is a music lesson for students. And another way that we're using Google Drive collaboratively is by using those shareable links that Mia and Kev were showing you, and being able to link everything into one place, which makes it a lot easier for students. And then the second way that we're using Google Drive is really through its amazing integration with other tools. So obviously it integrates beautifully with Google Classroom. So it makes it really easy for teachers to add resources to their lessons. I've already mentioned that we're using Screencastify for videos, and Screencastify videos that we make save automatically in your Google Drive in this Screencastify folder that it creates for you. So it's really easy then to share your videos with students, whether these are kind of giving instructions or perhaps actually talking through a lesson. I mentioned as well that we're using Meet for some live teaching and some not so live teaching. And again, all of those Meet recordings are saved in Google Drive. So that again means we can share really easily. And then the last folder I want to talk about is the Classroom folder, which can look a little bit scary because it has literally everything that's on your Google Classroom on it. But there are some quite clever things you can do with this. So our science department have set up over a number of years, not just in the last few weeks, I hasten to add, but they've set up, I think we're up to about 12 or maybe 14 Google Sites now covering different aspects of the science syllabus. And they've linked their folders into their Google Sites, which means that students have access to everything that the teachers can collaborate on. What they've done, you can see here that it's set up in the list view that Kev showed you, and you can see that it's got a last modified date. So our science department have been a little bit sneaky. This is a bit quite advanced. I'm quite impressed with this. They've started having a look at the last modified date in the Classroom folder to be able to quickly check if and when students have been working and whether they've been working when they should be. So that's been really interesting. And then finally, I've just got a couple of my personal top tips. Everyone's already talked about the color coding because that's clearly everyone's favorite feature in Google Drive. But my other favorite one to kind of add on this is if you click on the rename part of that, you can also add emojis to your folders. So my French folder has got a little picture of an Eiffel Tower next to it, just to remind me that it's French. And then my other top tip is you might have seen in Google Drive, there's a section called Priority. And this is really clever and has lots of amazing kind of machine learning, I think, going on in the background. So it will create things of workspaces for you, but you can create your own ones. And so I've created one where I save all my resources for my lessons for the day, for example. So you can group together files that don't necessarily belong in the same folder. So today I've been teaching both French and Spanish, and while they live in separate folders in my Google Drive and my videos live in my Screencastify folder, I can bring everything together in one workspace and have easy access to that throughout the day. And that's it from me.
Thanks, Emma. That was really useful. I love your top tips at the end. And I love the fact that you included color changing folders on. I really should have said it, should I? I should have let you show the greatness that is color changing. Thank you so much for that. It's really interesting to see how you're kind of continuing learning at home. I love the way that it's different as well for different departments, and that you've got the spreadsheet, all those links to all of the kind of resources, but then you're also using sites. So it's just awesome to see so many different ways to support students at home, because that's why we're all here, and particularly that's why we're here today. Thank you. With that, I'm going to bring back in Mia and Kev. I'm just going to head over to the questions. Kerry in the Q&A said, "How did you do the emojis?"
Oh, what, in the chat?
Oh.
It's, just below where you're typing in.
The chat? Was it something to do with what Emma said? No?
Was it what, me that did the emoji?
I don't know. Kerry?
Me, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say Emma is not in the chat.
No. So it depends on kind of the device you're using. Obviously, if you're editing Google Drive folder names and things on your phone, then obviously that's easy because phones will have a built-in kind of emoji keyboard. Otherwise, I tend to just search and copy the one that I want and pop it in there. But we spend we spend time with our year 7s every year, just teaching them how to do all of this in their Google Drive. So while we give them time to sit and emojify all their files and folders, I sit and do the same as well. So.
One top tip, actually, if you're using a Chromebook, the way to get emojis directly from a keyboard on a Chromebook is if you head into the accessibility features, you can turn on on-screen the on-screen keyboard, and then you can select emojis in that way, because essentially it almost brings up the same keyboard that you would have on a phone. So yeah, really great way to do that. And then Abid's just provided some context around on a Windows PC how you might do that as well. So there you go. There's an option to do that as well. Awesome. The other question, there was one other question I think that was probably mainly aimed at Kev and Mia that I saw after we left. Hold on, let's just see. Yes, this is one. Thank you. So if we drag files from an existing drive into a new shared drive, do they stay in the original drive as well? Does anyone want to pick up on adding a shortcut to drive, or do you want me to cover it off? I'll go. Do you want me to go?
Go on, Mia. Go on, Mia.
Yeah.
You're the shared drive extraordinaire.
You used to be able to add a document to your drive from shared drive. So basically, when someone shared something with you, it would essentially create a shortcut into your drive. But we've made it a bit clearer now in terms of the terminology of that feature. So now it says add shortcut to drive, and then it actually shows the symbol with like a little tick next to it, so you can see that this isn't a document that you've created and shared. It's something that you've basically added to your drive from somewhere else. Really useful. It means you can have basically things in more places than one. So rather than kind of just like Mia showed us earlier, moving something from your Google Drive into your shared drive, essentially you could add a kind of shortcut into that. One thing I would say is just be mindful about doing that, because otherwise you kind of get back into a kind of a traditional way of doing things. And I think the really great thing about using collaborative folders and things like that is the fact that you're wanting people to work on it. So you may as well just move it. But there's probably some use cases where maybe someone from an external organization has shared something with you and you want to kind of add a shortcut somewhere and store it somewhere. So that would be kind of my feedback on that one. Anything else to add?
No, I think you've covered it all there.
Sorry. Yeah. How do you set a priority area? I'm not quite sure what we mean by that.
Is that me as well?
Yeah, it must be you, Emma.
Shall I? Hold on, let me go to my drive.
Should we bring your screen back in? Yeah, awesome.
Yes, please. There we go. So on your Google Drive, you've got space at the top here, just above my drive on the left. It says priority. And if you click on that, you can then set up. So as I said, it will do all these kind of magical ones for you. But you can also create your own workspace. So you can call it, I think I already have one called Google, but never mind. And I can then, and then I can add files to it from my drive, and I can choose my recent files, or I can go through and pull stuff in. So let's say I want that. There, done. And that's there now. And then I can edit it as well. So I can view it, add more files. It will come up with suggestions as well, so it'll tell me what I've been looking at that's linked to it. It's very clever. And then I can remove it as well if I'm done.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think it's also good to have that workspace as like a one-stop shop for everything that you're working on within that project, as opposed to having to search through your drive and filter through your drive. It's just there, isn't it? Ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gives you a bit more ownership, right, as the kind of the creator of content, but also the fact that you might need to use other people's content, and that's probably stored somewhere else. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a really good way to just manage all of your stuff in one place. Great. So I think I know we've kind of talked to this a little bit, but if you think about when you first started using Google Drive, and I'm going to go around the group for this one, right? And I've shared a few top tips, and feel free to just repeat the ones that I've said if I've taken yours. But what was the kind of one thing or a lesson learned or one top tip or or anything that you would kind of advise someone else when you're training people? Like, what's the thing that you sort of say to them to get them to think about using Google Drive? Because it is different, and we've kind of established that it's definitely a different way of working. But what would be your piece of advice to someone starting out new? I think I'll start with Emma on this one, because Emma shared some already, and I'm happy for you to reiterate some of the ones that you shared. But yeah, go take it away.
Oh, I mean, definitely the color coding and the emojis are normally kind of the hook to get people who go, oh, yay, this is great. But then probably the sharing, the fact that everything is so collaborative, and that moving from having, version 1 of letter about a trip, version 2 letter about a trip, moving from that to having one document that everybody works on, and not kind of being confused about what's where and who's done what, and am I looking at the most up-to-date version, being able to see that actually my colleague's got exactly the same thoughts as me, and we're both editing it at the same time, and I go, oh, she's beating me to it, lovely, I don't have to do that now. That collaboration side of it is probably the best thing for me.
Awesome. Mia, I'm going to come on to you next.
So I find that a lot of people are quite apprehensive about sharing when first using Drive, like you say, Kiri. So what I would suggest is set up a folder that just has some kind of dummy files, and just practice sharing them with your colleagues, and practice the different sharing settings, and see what you can access on each other's documents and what you can edit and things like that, without it being anything real, so you don't have to worry about sharing something in the wrong way.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And you will make a mistake, right? And it's okay. You're not going to break anything. Everything's reversible. So yeah, that's a great tip. And Kev, to you last. We've taken nearly all the good ones now.
Unlimited storage was always that was the buy-in for me. Working at a hybrid college where we use Outlook for back of office, and we use Google for Teaching and Learning. The restrictions I had with my OneDrive, I was running out of space very quickly. And then when we merged with our first college, they had Google for Education. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try this Google Drive. It's unlimited space, and that was it. That was the moment for me when I just went down the Google route. So in terms of any training
of lesson resources from like however many years ago, Kev, because we've all got teachers like that, right?
There's just loads. Honestly, it's loads. I mean, I'd love to try and break the system, but I just can't manage it at the moment. So in terms of training, that's where I always start. I start with Google Drive and unlimited storage space, and the fact that you can access all your files anywhere at any time on any device. There's an app for it for every platform. So yeah, unlimited storage space, accessibility anywhere, anytime.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you on that one. And definitely, when kind of to start my work day, I usually go to Drive and my Gmail, right? So like they are the two kind of core things where you go and start your day, because that's where you can go and create a new document, or you can go and find the thing you were working on yesterday. And so I think it's just more kind of getting into that routine of just using it as your sort of your navigation tool to then navigate you to everything else that you use. And not to mention, if you're then using this for teaching and learning, creating stuff in your Google Drive and then attaching it to Google Classroom means you have that added benefit of the collaboration and being able to set things for students really nicely and easily. One thing we haven't touched on today, because we weren't talking about Classroom, is when you start out with Google Classroom, or if you use Google Classroom now, you'll notice it will automatically create a Classroom folder in your Google Drive. And basically that's where all of the files that are created in Google Classroom live. So if something drastically goes wrong in Google Classroom, which we've never not been able to get something back, I don't think, unless someone permanently deletes something, then everything is backed up in Google Drive anyway, and it's all there, and it's all kind of labeled really nicely in different subfolders for you. So just a top tip there if you're using Google Drive with Google Classroom. So with that, we're gonna finish off now. We've been at this an hour. I told you it was going to go quickly. So just wanted to say thank you so much to the trainers for today, for coming on. I know this is your first time doing one of this series of webinars, so hopefully you'll come back, because it was awesome. And also thank you to Emma, who came on her own from Tring School today. And so just like a massive shout out for just, you're so confident and natural at presenting the story. And obviously that's a credit to the work that's gone on at Tring and with your colleagues. But yeah, thank you so much for today. And thanks for everyone for watching. If you have any more questions, pop them in the chat, and please fill out our feedback form, because we're trying to gather as much feedback about these webinars as possible. Have a great rest of the day, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.